This is a very important section in this chapter. It's entitled Electrical Signals in Neurons. In this section, we're going to learn how neurons send electrical signals. It's very important that you listen very closely to every video that's in this section. The information is going to build, and so if at any time as you're proceeding through the videos you need to go back and review, that's perfectly fine. I'd encourage you to do so. Neurons are electrically excitable. What does that mean? If we go back to chapter 4 and look in the section Excitable Cells, it says this, and I'm reading from the 12th edition of the textbook on page 140. It says this: neurons and muscle fibers are considered excitable cells because they exhibit electrical excitability, the ability to respond to certain stimuli by producing electrical signals, such as action potentials. Action potentials can propagate, that is, travel along the plasma membrane of a neuron or muscle fiber due to the presence of specific voltage-gated ion channels. Well, that's a mouthful. For right now, it's just important to understand that neurons and muscle fibers can respond to certain stimuli, and when they respond to those stimuli, they produce electrical signals that will travel along the plasma membrane of those neurons and muscle cells. Neurons communicate with two types of electrical signals: action potentials, which will travel long distances along the neuron, and something called graded potentials that are local membrane changes only. This is an electrical signal that will travel only very short distances. In living cells, a flow of ions occurs through ion channels in the cell membrane. As we will see in more detail in just a second, the electrical signals that move down these neurons are due to a flow of ions that are moving through ion channels that are embedded in the cell membrane. The ability to generate these electrical signals in a cell is due to two characteristics of the plasma membrane of excitable cells: the existence of what is called a resting membrane potential. This term means that there is a difference in the amount of electrical charge on the two sides of the plasma membrane, that is, inside of the cell and outside of the cell. And more specifically, there's a lot of positive charge just outside of the cell, and there's a lot of negative charge just on the inside of the cell. And we'll deal with this in more detail later and understand how the cell generates a positive charge on the outside and a negative charge on the inside of the cell. The second feature of the plasma membrane of excitable cells that gives those cells the ability to generate an electrical signal is the presence of specific types of ion channels. And we'll take a look at those types of ion channels in just a second. Some of these ion channels will open and close and therefore allow ions to flow through them, and they'll do that in response to specific stimuli. The stimuli would include things such as chemicals that are involved in tasting, light that's involved in seeing, and sound waves that are involved in hearing.